Welcome to Four Seas One Family, where expats, immigrants, and migrants can share and learn about life experiences abroad. I'm your host, James Thomas, coming to you from Taipei, Taiwan, and I'm so glad to have you traveling along with me on this journey, and welcome to the show. Now, today I'm going to be talking about something that may shake up a few people I know, a few people I've taught, and also a few people who are expat or foreign nationals here in Taiwan. Now, I don't expect I will be having any enemies because of this, but I will let it be known that the topic I will be covering today is called Citizenship through Investment in Birthright. Now, you can probably look at the title and probably figure out what are some of the things I'm going to be talking about. And some of them to some people will be, well, I hope it causes them to do some thinking, but they may not be able to change their situation or solve anything at this particular time. Nor am I trying to persuade them to do any changes, only adaptations, because some of the things I will be talking about is frankly the fault or misstep on current national policies of certain particular nations. And this is something that if you have a question about, please leave a message below. And while you're doing that, click on the little bell down there, and it'll help us a lot here. And maybe I can also show you why people really do have a lot more in common than they think. You see, immigration is not only an issue in the United States, but also in nations that has always have some kind of conflict or some kind of imbalance with the people they invite in their nation. Immigration in not only the U.S., but also in other nations has also been a delicate and hot issue. And the current situation taking part in the world, different parts of the world, are forcing national administrations to take on heavy-handed approaches to, in some cases, classify, filter, and separate people crossing their borders. In some cases, it has become quite dangerous. However, there are those who manage to circumvent the guidelines that were set to control border crossing. It may be a little bit more surprising than you think. Now, I must be honest, I must tell you that I don't totally agree with the recent changes in attitude of the immigration system in my home nation, that's the United States. Now, although I may not agree with the way people who are crossing illegally are filtered and separated, I do agree that there are some changes that need to be taken. I really do agree that there is a need to make changes. Now, in ideal situations, for example, if, say in the United States, if one of the parents of a child born abroad in wedlock has had one of the parents have had a residence or one of its outlining possessions of the United States as the parent. The child born abroad in wedlock now to a U.S. citizen requires citizenship at birth. And that's according to the Immigration Nationality Act, and that's the INA, and that's under Section 301C, I think. Now, this has something to go way back into the cumulation or the compression of I use the word compression of the 14th Amendment in the United States. That's from 1868. Now, this just says that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and its possessions are citizens and are subjugated to the jurisdiction of the United States and blah, blah, blah. Now, there are some things to clarify on this particular wording. And citizens, well, at least in the beginning, at least in 1868, had a whole different connotation to certain types of people. And if so, right, if you are a U.S. citizen and have a child overseas, you should report his or her birth as soon as possible to put together a consular report or birth application or form that can be used to officially prove a child's claim to U.S. citizenship. So that's something you must keep in mind. Report the birth of your child abroad, born in wedlock, to the nearest U.S. embassy or consulate, and do that fast. Now, under the Child Citizenship Act, okay, children, this is interesting, children adopted abroad automatically acquire U.S. citizenship. That's cool. If at least one of the child's parents is a U.S. citizen. And this is sweet. Now, the child is admitted into the U.S. as an immigrant or lawful permanent resident until final adoption is made, until the adoption is final. Now, a child under, this is in the United States, a child under certain circumstances can acquire U.S. citizenship automatically through, through the birth of a U.S. citizen overseas, no matter where the birth has taken place. Now, but today, my main point is going to be in another direction slightly, and not specifically to the concerning the United States. Now, today, I want to take a look at other issues that are closely related to citizenship and immigration, which have for the most part been going under the radar of those nations that allow their own citizens to easily become citizens of other nations. Now, if you live here in Taiwan or whatever, you probably have seen some foreign nationals, but because of something they have offered to their home nation, host nation, I should say, become citizens for various reasons. But I'm not going to go deep into that in this episode. So I'm not talking about issues faced by people crossing international borders illegally. I'm not talking about that at all. I want to focus my attention now on a type of citizenship and immigration with possible hidden motives that are widely prevalent, easily observed. Now, most of what I want to talk about pertains to foreign nationals who have resources and income to take advantage of legal loopholes in relatively free and open nations that allows them to become citizens of these nations. And I'm talking about places, of course, like the US and Canada. Now, remember that, let me stress this. Remember that if you are living overseas in a host nation, you must follow the laws and customs of that nation. Otherwise, you'd probably be finding yourself in a lot of hot water. And if you don't like where you are, frankly, you should just leave. I like to say leave peacefully and hopefully quietly. Now, for me personally, over the years, I have been observing people from certain nations or locations or from nations that are considered friendly to the U.S. Now, and sometimes even nations considered hostile to the U.S. being allowed to give birth in the U.S., which in turn gives them citizenship or delayed citizenship. And this is crazy. Now, I use the term sometimes preferred nations. Like, we at one time had U.S. administration official called certain nations crap nations. People coming from nations in Africa will probably have a hard time. Africa or Middle East will have a harder time finding themselves being able to immigrate to the United States and get in for various reasons that I'm not going to go into today. Now, this is easily observed and is frankly the cause of many economic and social issues in nations that have allowed quick and easy citizenship for people of these so-called select nations. Now, it's true that quick and easy immigration has led to the financial, physical growth of many nations. Yes, if you look at the United States, for example, they had a lot of immigration in the early times when the country was put together, especially after the Civil War and stuff like that, that really helped industrialize it. A lot of nations do it to build up their population. to also build up their means of collecting taxes and offering services. But those type of selections or rules are actually done by people who have the political prowess to invoke or to lobby for such type of legislation. Now, also, I am seeing people who have citizenships from certain nations that are taking advantage of nations that are too accommodating and appeasing to people from other nations. Now, I do understand that these nations are hoping to gain investment, like I said, same thing, United States, from these so-called new citizens. I mean, we all probably have heard certain small nations announcing that they have given citizenship to movie stars, these actors, famous financial moguls and tycoons and all this stuff. And they broadcasting it maybe just to, in some subliminal way, saying that, we're a fine place to be or bring your capital, which is, in the most part, that's what it's all about. However, the same accommodations are not being offered in a reciprocal fashion to ordinary foreign nationals in nations that allow their own citizens to easily become citizens of other nations. This is shaking. Maybe it just has to stop. Not because it's not fair, but really, this is a way of pulling the wool over the sheep's eyes, I guess I can say. Now, citizens of other nations that want to become citizens of nations like the United States, Canada, England, France, Germany, Sweden, whatever, they have good reasons for doing so. I mean, some of them just want to flee wars, be able to express their religious values, or get away from environmental problems, gain financial opportunities, or get access to advanced health care. But that wouldn't lead them to the United States, though. But, for example, most U.S. immigration issues are focused directly on the large influx of people crossing its southern borders. Mexico, right? Now, the southern border isn't the only place where foreign nationals are attempting to enter the United States, for example, and to later become citizens. Now, the honest truth is, many are just flying directly to places like the United States, countries that have legal and quite open policies of immigration, and they're carrying legal documents, very, very legal. And the objectives of these foreign nationals who enter countries like the United States that have, once again, like I said, very liberal and open national immigration visa policies, they are not really violent or a direct threat at the particular time to the United States. Now, like I'm pointing out, the trip is usually disguised in more personal objectives that simply may be set to create a better life, or just to create a simple family legacy. So for some are planning to enter the United States just to ensure a better future for themselves and the people that they love or care about. Now, I'm going to switch over to another thing in the topic, and it's called birth tourism. Now, simply stated, birth tourism is when a foreign national travels to another location, country, to give birth to a child. That's their sole purpose, so having their child in a nation that is more, how would you say, more promising for the child's future. And also so that the child and family members can also at one time, one day, obtain or acquire citizenship of that nation. Now, like I said, there are many reasons why people from other nations decide to do this, and it's on the rise. Now, countries that have liberalized or more flexible birthright citizenship related policies, legislations are the targeted destinations for this type of practice. Now, currently, the United States and its territories in Canada are at the top of the birth tourism list. And there's a lot of reasons for that, like I mentioned earlier. However, some countries, on the other hand, like Australia, France, Germany, Ireland, New Zealand, South Africa, the list goes on, they have set up or modified their citizenship laws to either slow down or discourage this particular practice. Now, there has been an upswing in this type of networked underground birth services that promote and even encourage foreign nationals to give birth in nations that have loose birthright regulations. And these services even suggest that those who are participating attempt to hide their pregnancies from border officials, and in some cases even commit visa fraud by lying to custom officials about the true nature of their visit. Now, I feel that nations that have birthright citizenship, at least easy ones, should set up reciprocal agreements or protocols with other nations that allow, for example, instant citizenship to the children of foreign nationals. Reciprocal agreements, reciprocal protocols. So simply, if a foreign national from a nation that has or shares an agreement with the nation they are giving birth to their child abroad, it would allow the child to be granted either local citizenship. Now, if the parent isn't from a membered nation, the child, along with family members, should not be granted in any form citizenship of the child's birth nation. Now, it's so funny, just keep in mind that, for example, legally giving birth in the United States is cheap as, it's not cheap, it's expensive. I was thinking about Taiwan, which I consider having a child in Taiwan quite inexpensive. But, like some people have reported, giving birth in the United States, foreign nationals, I should say, legally giving birth in the United States can cost up to $50,000 US. And that is, wow, that's a lot of money, a lot of Benjamin Franklin's. Now, another one I would want to get to, while we have time, is called, obtaining citizenship through investments, I would say. A lot of nations do this. And, it's just no secret that many nations sell their citizenship to foreign nationals who are willing to make a financial investment in their nation. And that could be a lot of things, as from agriculture, property, to stock investments. This all sounds good, but of course, it comes with perceived and many times obvious motives on all sides. People know what they're doing. Now, this practice is easily uncovered and observed in many internationally connected cities like New York, Houston, London, whatever. by foreign nationals who purchase property or control sometimes national treasures that are dear to the local population, primarily for, how would you say, obtaining more personal assets or physical assets for their corporate or for their personal or financial portfolios. And this is just the truth. Now, on the surface, this may seem to be business as usual. However, according to some recent and disturbing development, it has been found that foreign nationals who are government officials from nations that have sworn opposition to the policies of the nations they have invested in, being allowed to invest in nations their own home nation opposes and, in some cases, even detest. Now, let us ask, should this be called business as usual? Now, my conclusion is that all foreign nationals should observe the laws of the host nation they're in. And if they're unable to abide by the host nation's rules and regulation, they should just leave. Return home. Like I say, return home in peace, safely. Also, I personally feel that and this may sound quite rough, I personally feel that if someone is willing to become a citizen of another nation, they must honestly be willing to not only abide by the laws of their host nation or the nation they want to become a citizen of, they have already become a citizen of, but also in extreme cases, willingly to physically protect the nation and maybe in some cases even die. Wow, that sounds crazy. For example, I've heard about and read about people who became, for example, U.S. citizens and went to war, not because they were forced, but because they believed in what they were fighting for. Many of them said that they've made the decision to go to war, for example, for the United States, because in their own nation, they were persecuted or prevented from expressing themselves. And this was their ultimate way to prove their allegiance. This may sound ideal, but it is the truth for many of them. Now, my opinion is that if a foreign national is willing to become a citizen of their host nation, their inclusion should go beyond a certain status or financial convenience. And this is how I feel about this type of will or thought of becoming a citizen of a nation. Because we know those who are making just short-term financial investments in their host nation, if something goes down, they're the first ones to leave. It sounds like survival, I guess. This is something that I just wanted to get off my chest real quick while we do other things here in Taiwan. And I would like to hear what you have to say, what your opinions about this. And if you are living abroad, or maybe you yourself, or maybe you know someone who has become a citizen of your host nation, or maybe you are thinking about this yourself, would you be willing to protect the nation you have become, or one day maybe become a citizen of? Or would you even want to, or would you dare die for that nation? There are many, and this is what I'm alluding to, there are many people who become citizens of a nation just for a certain status symbol, investment in their family legacy, but still hold true allegiance to their nation of birth in most cases. Please leave a message below if you have anything you can say about this. And if you've found what we had to say of any value to you, please click the little bell down there and subscribe, and please pass the word that we have a lot more in common than we think. Take care, and thank you for joining us here at 4C's One Family. 再见。